What's up guys, Lifting here. In this video I'm going to explain what you need to be aware of before deciding on which class to play in Path of Exile. Before I tell you, just a quick reminder that if you ever find yourself in need of help or have questions regarding Path of Exile, we have a subsection entirely dedicated to this on my Discord. Feel free to join us there. Also, while you're at it, if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. So let's get the basics out of the way first. There are in total 7 classes in the game. Each of these circles you see here represent their starting position in the skill tree. The classes are the Witch, the Shadow, the Ranger, the Duelist, the Marauder, the Templar, and finally the Scion. The starting position for each class indicates which type of skill nodes they will have access to at low levels at the beginning of their adventure. Each of the classes have a different attribute alignment, which in this case are Strength, Dexterity, and Intelligence. Of these 3, the Witch is the primary intellect class, the Ranger the primary dexterity class, and the Marauder the primary strength class. The Shadow, Duelist, Templar, and Scion are considered hybrids. And as a quick side note, it's worth knowing that in terms of defense, the strength dominant part of the skill tree typically offers armor scaling, whereas the dexterity part offers evasion and dodge, and intelligence energy shield. Let's say you want to play a bow build. Then you're most likely going to be interested in skill nodes that grant increased attack speed, bow damage, maybe some critical strike, life, etc. But since you only get 1 skill point per level and up to 24 extra as quest rewards, it is obvious that you have to spend these wisely to be as efficient as possible with the limited amount of points you have. Let's take another example. Let's say you're planning on playing a 2-handed melee character. Well, in that case you obviously don't want bow nodes, but rather something that scales melee attack damage, attack speed, and maybe something like increased area of effect in case you're using a skill that has an AoE component to it. I'll explain skill gems in the next video, don't worry. But so, such a skill tree would be picking up these kind of skill nodes, and since these nodes are way over here, then the amount of skill nodes spent trying to reach them would be much less if you were to pick the Marauder, Duelist, or Templar as opposed to the Ranger or Shadow, for example. So as a general rule of thumb, the class you choose needs to be based around the idea of which type of build you want to do and how that is most efficiently achieved via the points you will have to spend in the skill tree, but also based on which Ascendancy supports it the best. So we have established that there are 7 different classes in the game, right? All of these classes have 3 Ascendancies except the Scion, but ignore that for now. What you need to pay attention to is that Ascendancies really are just another word for character specialization. If you have played World of Warcraft, then you know that each class except the Emo Hunter has 3 specializations that each provide strong upgrades for the class. The Ascendancy system in Path of Exile is similar in concept, just executed differently. For example, let's take the Witch here. The Witch can specialize into 3 different Ascendancies. The Elementalist, which focuses on improving her powers with anything elemental. The Occultist, which focuses on occult stuff. And finally the Necromancer Ascendancy, which is the #1 go-to Ascendancy for any aspiring witch out there who wants to raise the dead and make them do her bidding for her. For instance, the Necromancer's Bone Sculpture node grants 40% increased damage for your skeleton minions, while also allowing you to control 2 additional skeletons, 100% increased skeleton movement speed, and it makes skeletons unable to miss their target when they attack. Needless to say, if you're playing a summoner build focusing on skeletons, then this is an incredibly valuable node to pick. Or if you are playing a build that utilizes an AoE elemental skill, then the Elementalist Pendulum of Destruction node suddenly becomes an attractive choice with 75% increased area of effect for 5 seconds, followed up with 75% increased elemental damage for 5 seconds. A rather significant boost, right? Ascendancies are basically specializations that grant very powerful bonuses to your build. You can only have 1 Ascendancy and you can only spend 8 Ascendancy points, so it's not possible to get all the nodes for your specialization. It is also important to know that you won't choose your Ascendancy specialization until later on in the game, until you have beaten Isaro in the Lord's Labyrinth. Now, I won't go over each Ascendancy class as that will simply take too long, and it is something you can read up on for yourself. But as I am sure that a lot of you new players out there may feel a bit overwhelmed by all the choices that are available, I will give you a general rundown of which archetypes of builds that typically belong with the different classes in the game. And I must preface this by saying that there are of course lots of exceptions to this, but if you already understand and know these exceptions, then this video probably isn't for you either way, right? The different base types of builds are caster builds, with spells and such. You typically see these builds being played as the Witch, Templar or the Shadow. Then you have the melee attack builds. These are typically played as the Marauder and Duelist, but are often seen as Shadows, Templars and even Rangers too. Bow builds, as you probably guessed, are primarily played as the Ranger, but are occasionally also seen as the Shadow or Duelist. Summoner builds are almost exclusively played as either the Witch or the Templar. And then we have something like Totem, Trap and Mine builds, which are all three different types of builds, but can arguably be played as any class, depending on the type of totems, mines and traps you're using. Don't worry about this for now. And finally, support builds, which to my knowledge at the moment are exclusively played as the Templar or Witch. Moving on. The reason these builds are played more as one type of class over the other is due to the Ascendancy specialization they offer and their starting position in the skill tree. Some of them are rather obvious, such as the Saboteur via the Shadow for instance. It's pretty obvious here that this Ascendancy works great for trap and mine focused builds, right? Yes. However, it is important to understand that while it isn't as common to see, then it's absolutely still viable to play a melee attack based Witch, a spellcaster Marauder, a Ranger that uses Energy Shield as defense. These types of builds are simply making use of the many different mechanics in Path of Exile that allows you to creatively build your own character, your own way. It's all going to make much more sense once you've tried out the game or leveled a couple of characters. Don't give up if your first character ends up feeling weak. It's almost expected to happen for anyone who just started playing the game. The complexity of the game that initially may put you off or intimidate you is the reason you eventually won't be able to put it aside. And with that said, I hope I managed to help you get a better understanding on the differences between the classes, so it is now at least a little easier for you to make a decision for yourself. Best of luck if you're just starting out in Path of Exile. It's an amazing game that you will be able to sink thousands of hours into. I know I have. Way too many hours actually. Now there will be plenty more Path of Exile content coming up on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe. Visit me on Twitch to catch the live show. I stream almost every day. If you want to take your support to the next level, consider spending your Twitch Prime sub in my channel or visit me on Patreon. Thank you very much guys. And bros, do you even nerd?